Color theory. All right. This is going to be extremely important. There's several reasons that we need to study color theory, why it's important. All right. Because color definitely impacts the emotional reaction of the viewer. Pedro, if I can have you face the front, please. Thank you, sir. All right. It also helps to set the mood of the image, okay? Using certain colors can affect certain emotional states in the people that are viewing your work, all right? One of the other nice things is that it helps to keep your color selection simple. So if you're one of those people who's ever done an artwork or even something as simple as a coloring book, and you've sat there and you've thought, well, you know, what color should I use for this part, or what color should I use here? Especially if it's something that's abstract or pattern-based, knowing color theory, knowing about color harmonies can help to simplify that process, all right? So you'll never really have to guess what colors to use in a certain situation. Now yesterday, I think this is about where the power went out. We were talking about how we understand the way color is processed, the way we see color, okay? This up here should look familiar to most of you by high school, all right? That is the spectrum. All right? So the spectrum is all the different colors that are contained in typical white light. So if you look at the light fixtures here in the classroom, those emit what we call white light, but it has all these different wavelengths of energy in it that show us the different colors. Now if you take light away, color goes away. All right? I gave the example yesterday about walking to school before the sun is up, and most colors seem very dull. All right, if it's really dark out, most colors turn to different variations of gray, all right, unless there's some sort of light source shining on it, all right? But when that light shows up, we're able to see or perceive the different colors, all right? So these little wavelengths, these little things of energy that are invisible to our eye, when they're absorbed, we don't see them, okay? So when you have a white light shining on something, all of these colors are possible. They're potential, all right? But the one color that we see is when that particular wavelength of light or energy is reflected back to our eye. So it bounces off the object. I'm going to use Jocelyn as an example. So everybody go ahead and stare at her. Don't feel too bad, Jocelyn. All right, but we need to see your shirt because you have a nice red shirt on, and that's what caught my eye.
It's pink.
It's pink?
That's what pink is.
It's a pretty dark pink. All right. So Jocelyn's shirt is showing to us as either a really intense pink or as red, okay? The reason for that is every single one of these colors, every single one of these wavelengths is hitting that shirt, and all of them are being soaked into it except for the wavelength that shows us that color, okay? That's how we perceive it, all right? So it bounces back to our eyes. Here's another example, okay? You guys can see this apple. The entire spectrum is hitting that apple. The wavelength that reflects back off of it to our eyes is which one?
Red.
It's red, okay? Unless you're looking really carefully at the stem of the apple, okay? And that would reflect a different wavelength, all right? But it's a pretty simple concept, not too difficult to understand. Now, if we look at, I was gonna pick on somebody, but I'll be nice today. If we look at Barney here, okay? I was gonna say somebody's favorite character, but I won't be mean. If we look at him, overall, the majority of his body reflects the violet wavelength, or purple, okay? We can use those words interchangeably, it's not a big deal. Some people get picky about it, but that's not me, all right? Now, if you look at his belly, that's reflecting the green wavelength. What about his toenails?
Yellow.
Yellow, that's nasty, right? He needs the cream that they advertise in the little commercial with the little thing lifting the toenails off and crawling under. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, so he needs to get some fungus cream for his toenails. But what about his eyes and his teeth? What's reflected there? Well, there's black and white, but it gets a little tricky when we start seeing black and white, because those are what are known as neutrals, okay? Neutrals are the colors that are not in the spectrum, okay? So you remember the spectrum that I showed you. It's that bright set of colors. It's the rainbow, okay? But neutrals aren't there, all right? Because they represent all the wavelengths at the same time either being absorbed or reflected. So it's all the wavelengths. So when we see black, that's everything being absorbed. When we see white, that's everything being reflected. That's why if you wear a white shirt and you're at a place where there's like a black light on, The white shirt looks like it glows because it's taking the color of the light itself and pushing it back to your eyes, okay? So we'll see a little example here. We've got the light, it's hitting the black square, everything is being absorbed, nothing bounces off, okay? That's why when you wear a black shirt on a bright sunny day, you tend to feel much warmer, okay? Because all the energy, all the wavelength from the sunlight is hitting that black shirt or that black sweatshirt or whatever it is and being absorbed into it. So it's retaining all that energy, okay? With gray, you're getting a little bit of reflection and a little bit of absorbing of every wavelength. So that's all the colors, right? Just a little bit of each coming back to your eye. And with white, it's everything being reflected. All right. Does anybody have any questions so far? Yes, sir.
What if like the light's kind of like tinted yellow or red?
So then, if the light is tinted yellow, let's say with like a gel over the surface of the light, you're going to see that white object would reflect the color of the light itself. So whatever wavelengths are able to make it through that yellow gel, that's going to be reflected back to the eye. Right? Or absorbed by like a black object. Good question. Other questions? All right, let's move on. So now, I know this is in your notes, okay? This is something that you might want to take notes on because I'm going to refer to this if we do some painting this semester, okay? And that is tints, tones, and shades, okay? Now, what's the first thing you guys typically think of when you hear the word tint?
Like
Tinted windows, yeah, tinted windows. Now, tinted windows usually get darker, right? You're trying to hide what's inside the car, maybe provide some shade, okay? But in painting and in art, tinting actually refers to adding white to a color, okay? So when you want to create a tint, you add white to the color. All right? So what I have here, and you're going to see this example a couple of times with tones and shades as well, okay? These are the pure colors, all right? This is the color wheel. This is adding 20% white, adding another 20% white, and then another 20% white, okay? So you guys can see, proportionally, the more white you add to a color, the lighter it gets, okay? It also gets less intense. Now what I mean by intense is like the brightness of the color itself. So if we look at, let's say orange over here, that's a pretty intense orange. If I covered the entire board with that color of orange, it's gonna be kind of irritating, right? It's gonna bother your eye a little bit, okay? But as I add more and more white to it, okay, it gets less intense. It's not as annoying, all right? Now if I decide to add gray, then I'm gonna get tones, okay? And this is an underappreciated thing. Tones in paintings and artworks are really underappreciated. A lot of beginning artists don't really think about tones, okay? But honestly, if I think back to most of my favorite artworks, okay, as far as paintings are concerned, tones are some of the best things I see, okay? They're the ones that create the most visual interest for me personally, okay? Because just using the straight out color from the bottle, it's super intense, but it also tends to look kind of childish. Hey, what's up? Recording. All right, I'll do that for you later. Thank you. All right. So this is a way of adding variety to your color selection, okay? If you just use the paint straight out of the bottle, okay, and maybe had some lighter values in there, it's gonna look kind of boring, all right? So tones can add that variety. They also lessen the intensity of the colors, just like we talked about last time. So here's the pure colors, 20%, another 20, and another 20, okay? And you can obviously play around with that. You can have tints, tones, and shades all in the same painting. In fact, I highly recommend it, because if you don't, your stuff is gonna look very flat. All right. So here's shades. Now shades, it kind of starts to make sense now when we think about it. Shades are adding black to your color, okay? So if you want a shade of blue, you're gonna take that original blue and you're gonna add black until it gets as dark as you want it to be, all right? So again, just like the others, this lessens the intensity of your colors. It provides visual interest, okay? If you think back to when we did our self-portraits, the range of value that you had to deal with in order to make those look good, to make them look realistic, right? You had to have the lightest lights and you had to have the darkest darks and everything in between if you really wanted that painting, or sorry, that drawing to pop, okay? The same thing applies when it comes to paint, all right? So tints, tones, and shades will help you get there. All right. Does anybody have any questions about those three terms? Pretty simple stuff, right? It's just a lot of information, I get it, all right? So now we're gonna get into the really fun stuff, and this is color mixing. This is where you start to understand the relationships between the different colors, all right? And you're gonna be seeing this a lot, all right? This outside ring right here, this is what is known as the color wheel, okay? And the color wheel shows us the relationships between the colors. So I'm gonna give you some terms here that'll help you to understand it. We've got the primary colors. Now let's look where those arrows are pointing. We've got yellow, we've got red, and we've got blue. Those are the three primary colors. I see some heads going down to the note-taking sheets. That's good because this is extremely important. The primary colors, yellow, red, and blue, okay? Now they don't have to go in that order. They can go in any order you want, but yellow, red, and blue are the primary colors.
Oh, that's why like in the Burger King or like in Jack in the Box and those type of commercials,
Yeah.
the colors that stick out a lot is yellow and red. Because that's
Yeah.
what constant people's attention about the food, right?
Oh man, you're on it. And we're even gonna talk about that. I have a
Big
slide
goggles.
based on that later in the lecture. Definitely, you're on the right track, okay? So red, yellow, and blue, primary colors. Does anybody know what the word primary means? First.
Main.
Oh, first or main, yeah, that works as well. But if you think about the root word of primary, it's prime, okay? So primary colors are the first colors. These are the colors you cannot create by mixing other colors together, all right? So let's think about that. Does anybody have a formula that they can use to create yellow paint by using two other colors? If you do, let me know on the side and we'll market that and make millions, all right? Because it doesn't exist, all right? You cannot create these colors by mixing other colors,
Just
all
add a
right?
white to like a darker shade of yellow.
Well, yeah, and even that's just gonna be a tint of yellow, right? So now if we look between the primary colors, we look in the middle of those, we get what are known as the secondary colors, okay? So look, I'll point it out right here. We've got blue. If we go around here, we got yellow. Those are both primaries. Right in the middle is green. Let's check the next one. We've got yellow, we've got red. Right in the middle is orange. And we've got red and we've got blue. In the middle is purple or violet. You can use it interchangeably. Okay? Green, orange, and violet are the secondary colors. All right? So the secondary colors, in theory, are the colors that you get by mixing two primaries. So primary means first, secondary means second, right? It's all kind of logical. It's nice, okay? So the theory is if you take two primaries, let's say yellow and blue, and you mix them in equal parts, you're supposed to get green. Well, what happens if you put a little too much blue in there? Well, the projector does a terrible job of showing this, but this is supposed to be blue-green, all right? So we can test that out over here as well. Let's say we're mixing yellow and blue, and we're trying to get green, but we mix a little too much yellow. You could call it lime green. The proper term for it is yellow-green, okay? Now, I want you guys to think about this. These are known as the intermediate colors. The intermediate colors, some people call them the tertiary colors, but it's a real pain to try and pronounce that one, so I just say intermediate, all right? And the intermediate colors are those ones that are in between the primary and secondary, okay? So let's think about it. If we've got red and we've got blue and we're mixing them together to get purple, but we put a little too much red in, what do we get? It's red,
Blue.
red violet, red purple, okay? I call it red violet, you know, I grew up looking at the crayons that say red violet on them, so. Red violet. Now what I want you to think about in that term is the order that they go in. Here's the catch. We already talked about primary meaning first, right? We talked about secondary meaning second, all right? Primary is first, secondary is second. Red is the primary, Violet is the secondary. This is red violet. Okay? Red orange, yellow orange, yellow green, blue violet. Okay? So when you're trying to name an intermediate color, okay, you go primary, secondary.
What if you mix 2 secondaries?
If you mix 2 secondaries, you can get some interesting results. But most oftentimes what will happen is you'll end up with some kind of brownish, grayish color that comes out of it. And we can talk about that a little later when we get into color harmonies. But yeah, some artists use that to their advantage and do some really nice stuff with it. All right? So we got primary, secondary, and intermediate. Any questions about those? All makes sense now, right? Now we get into the best part of all, color harmonies. Now this is the stuff that if you didn't take notes on anything else, you definitely want to take notes on this. All right? The reason for that is because you're going to use color harmonies on most of your projects for the rest of the semester. Okay? So, I'm going to read them off to you so you know how to pronounce them. If you need to take notes there, I don't remember if that's written on your note-taking sheet. Oh yeah, they give an example of a triadic, monochromatic. Okay, so we've got triadic, complementary, split complementary, monochromatic, and analogous. Okay, analogous. You don't really need to write them down because they are on your note-taking sheet, but what I do want you to do is write down examples of them. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about these, how to find them, how to figure them out on a color wheel. Okay, I'm going to give you some examples. I want you guys to write those down so that you have them available if and when you need them. All right? So we're going to start with the easiest one first, triadic. Okay? Who was my expert on root words earlier? Was that Angel? Okay. What does tri mean?
3.
3. Okay? So triadic colors, there's the clue right there. It's got to have 3 colors. Now the catch, the trick to it, is that they're equally spaced on the color wheel. All right? So that means you're going to have the same number of skipped colors in between each time you go around. So I'm going to point out a perfect example of a triadic color harmony, and that should seem familiar to you. It's yellow, red, and blue. Where have we heard about those before?
Primaries.
It's primaries, right? Yellow, red, and blue are the primary colors. They also happen to be spaced equally on the color wheel. Okay? So if I pick one, let's say yellow, and I go around, let's count the skipped ones. We got 1, 2, 3 that we skip, we pick red. We got 1, 2, 3 that we skip, we pick blue, skip 3 more, and we're back where we started. Okay? So yellow, red, and blue, that's an example of a triadic color harmony. Okay? We can try this again. We've got orange, violet, and green. Those are the secondary colors. Okay? Those are also equally spaced. Now you can even have them with the intermediate colors. Yellow, orange, red, violet, and blue, green. That would be an example. Okay? So it's almost like if you had a spinner, right? That was spaced out equally and it had 3 pointers on it. You could just kind of spin it around the wheel and kind of select which ones you want. As long as they're equally spaced, that's a triadic color harmony. Okay? Kind of a nice situation. Now the cool thing is that in a color harmony, you can always use tints, tones, and shades. And in fact, I highly recommend it. Okay? So if we look at some triadic color harmonies, should be pretty happy about that one, right? That was your example. All right? So we can see there's some examples of triadic color harmonies that we see around us. Okay? Everything from nature, right? A bird of paradise flower. Okay? Superman logo, Burger King. Okay? Now what you're going to notice is that when you have this particular triadic harmony, it almost looks kind of old-fashioned, right? It looks kind of old-timey. All right? So you can get kind of a sense of emotion or feeling out of combinations of colors. All right? But these definitely don't look old-fashioned in terms of the color. But that's still a triadic color harmony. All right? So it's interesting how different artists or different designers will use colors to try to create different effects. All right? Does anybody have any questions about triadic? You all got your examples written down? Yeah. The next one, this is one of my favorites. Complementary color harmonies. All right? Now, complementary color harmonies, that's when you want to get attention. If you want to grab somebody's brain and drag it over to your artwork or your logo or your clothing, complementary color harmonies are the way to go. Okay? Complementary color harmonies are basically colors that are directly across from each other on the color wheel. So right here we can see orange is straight across from blue. Okay? If we use orange and blue in combination, those two colors are the highest contrast between two colors that we can get. That applies to any complementary color harmony. All right? So, orange and blue is an example. Yellow and violet is an example. Red and green, okay? Yellow, green, and red, violet. Okay, anywhere you want to spin that pointer, as long as the colors are lined up straight across from each other on the color wheel, you've got a complementary color harmony. Okay? Now, because these have high visual impact, because they're attention-getting, sometimes people use these to their advantage. Let's see if we can see some examples. Just a few. I ran out of room, but there were more. Okay? These are all examples of complementary color harmonies. Okay? Now, all of these also happen to be sports logos. Now, the reason that a sports team might want to have complementary colors, I guess there's a couple of reasons, but number one, it's going to grab attention. It's going to be high visual impact. Okay? And that does a few things for a sports team. Okay? Number one is out on the field when they're playing, if they're wearing these complementary colors, that's going to grab the attention of the other players on their team very quickly. They're going to be highly visible to each other. Okay? The other thing is that if you're walking through a store, okay, and you're looking to buy a new basketball jersey, and you've got something with just kind of some kind of colors, and you've got high impact, high contrast colors over on the shelf near it, your eye, whether you know it or not, is going to be drawn to those high contrast, high impact colors. Now, if you're not a fan of the Lakers, you're obviously not going to buy it, but that combination of colors will draw your attention. Right? Now, if you're one of those people that likes attention, okay, start rocking complementary colors in your day-to-day life. Okay, it's going to pull the attention of others towards you. Okay? Any questions about complementary color? You guys all understand it? Pretty basic, right? Here's where it gets a little trickier. All right, split complementary harmonies. Now, if you didn't understand complementary, you're going to have a really tough time with split complementary, because split complementary starts off with one color and it's going straight across, and then at the last second, instead of taking the complement, it takes the complement's neighbors instead. Okay, it splits. All right. So, whereas a complementary color harmony would be red and green, a split complementary, if it starts with red, would be red, blue-green, and yellow-green. Okay? So it splits at the last second. Now this is still high visual impact, okay? It's still high contrast, but it's not quite as intense as what we saw with complementary. Okay? So again, if you're starting a split complementary, you start with one color, you're going across, straight across, and then instead of taking the one straight across, you split off and take its neighbors. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about that before I show you some examples? I know this one's a little trickier, and I'll help you through it later in the semester if you have questions. But here's some examples. Everything, they're actually, I was surprised to find a sports logo that had a split complementary harmony, but there it is, okay? The Marlins.
What is that?
Believe me.
Late.
Thank you, sir. All right, so the Florida, I think they go by Florida Marlins now. Yeah. Okay, so their logo. We've got some paintings. Okay, we've got photography. All right, and all of these have split complementary harmonies. So let's look at this. We've got blue. Now, blue's complement is orange, right? But these oranges are a little different. We've got red orange, right? It's orange with a little extra red in it. And we've got yellow orange, okay, which is orange with a little bit of extra yellow. All right? So we can see the different types of styles that you can get. There's complementary, high impact, split. It's just a little less impact, but it's still pretty intense, right? Any questions? All right, moving on. Now, I like to follow up the most difficult to explain one with the easiest one to explain, and that's monochromatic. Now, I know I've mentioned this one to you guys before, but I'm going to go over it one more time, okay? Monochromatic is really simple. Angel, you're my word expert. Mono, meaning one, yes. Who is that over here? Now, here's a more difficult one, so this is open to the whole class. Chroma. Chroma, the word root.
I think it's kind of like all.
I guess I could see how that might work. Chroma actually means color. Okay? So this is interesting. If we take just those two roots, we've got mono meaning one, chroma meaning color. Monochromatic is one color. All right?
Wait, so chrome means what does like?
Well, chrome is more like a different term. You know, when you talk about like chroming somebody's rims or their bumper or something. Yeah. But chroma itself as the root means color. All right? So monochromatic meaning one color. All right? This is really easy, guys. Tints, tones, and shades of a single color from the spectrum. All right? So I'm going to show you some examples. I'll just let that sit for a minute. Some of these are paintings and some of these are photographs. But the overwhelming sense when you see them is that they're very peaceful in a way. Right? Very beautiful images. Right? Just the continuity provided by having that single color. And everything in the image is some sort of variation, whether it's light, medium, or dark, from that individual color. Okay? It's really nice. The other thing that's really cool is that they tend to be a little more simple. All right, so if you're creating a painting and not only you want it to look good, but you want to keep it simple, or maybe you don't have enough money to buy a whole bunch of different paints, monochromatic is the way to go. All right?
Some people like in photography, people use black and white as a monochromatic.
Yeah, and that is another form of it. All right, and the last major color harmony that we're going to talk about is analogous. Okay, now if you don't hear this one explained, you might have a little difficulty, so try to follow along. Okay, analogous color harmonies use colors that share one common color in their creation. So let's think about that. Okay, if I start with red, right, we've got red here. You understand now, based on the color wheel and what we've learned, that orange has at least some red in it, right? Because you can't create orange without having some red, right? It's mixed with yellow, right? But all oranges have some amount of red. Well, the same thing goes for violet as well, okay? So if you wanted to start with red, if red was your overarching color that you wanted all those things to share, you could use violets, you could use red, and oranges all in the same image, and they're all tied together by that common thread of red.
Wait, what about blue violet?
Yeah, I skipped it on the example because on the projector it comes out more like a navy blue. But yeah, basic concept, right? So if we start with yellow, we've got the greens available, we've got the oranges, and we have yellow itself. And if you start with blue, you have the greens, you have blue itself, and you have the violets. Okay? And again, as always, tints, tones, and shades are always welcome. Okay. And here we have some examples of some analogous images. We've got our blues and our violets. Again, blue and violet all share blue as a common thread. Here we have orange, green, and yellow. Right? There's yellow in all of those colors. Right? We have yellows and oranges here. Right? Yellows, oranges. Actually, more of a yellow-orange with a red, orange, and red. Right? Here we've got yellows and greens and oranges. Okay? So you can see the impact or the style that comes along with using analogous colors. Okay? One of the things I like about analogous color harmonies is that it gives you a lot of options, right? You've got a lot of different colors that you can pick and choose from, which is helpful, right? All right. Questions about color harmonies, because we're done with those. All right. Now it's time to talk about warm and cool colors. I don't spend a lot of time on it because, I mean, if I'm honest with myself, it's pretty basic. Okay, warm colors are the colors you associate with heat, fire, summertime. Cool colors are the colors you associate with water, plants, and ice. Okay, so here we have examples of warm color harmonies. Right? These are warm palettes. Right? So the colors in these images are all, for the most part, warm color. Right? We can switch it over to cool color, and you guys can see the difference. Okay, it impacts your emotions when you see these different sets of colors. If you surround yourself with warm colors all the time, you have a different emotional response than if you surround yourself with cool colors. Right? And that's it for that stuff. Okay, bless you. Now, does anybody have any questions before I move on to some color psychology stuff? All right, we'll power through it then. All right, color psychology. I'm going to go through some different colors here. All right, if you think about your notes, you can pretty much put the notes off to the side for now. Okay. However, the one thing that I do want you to think about in terms of color psychology is think about the clothes you're wearing today, possibly the clothes that you wear most of the time, okay? Because people tend to have like their favorite color that they like to wear a lot, okay? And just think about some of the psychological impacts of those colors, all right? And see if you think it applies to you. Because all of this stuff is theory, all right? So we'll see how we go. Now, black, okay? The associations with the color black: power, intimidation, mystery, confidence, discipline, okay? Submission. Now that's interesting because power and submission kind of contrast each other, right? Okay? But some people theorize that people will wear black to show that they're submissive. Okay? Specifically, the stuff that I've read points to priests and preachers wearing black to show that they're not going to be flashy, okay, and that they're being submissive to God and stuff like that. Okay? Sometimes black is seen as very sophisticated. Right? You'll hear people talk about the little black dress, right? But it can also be seen as evil. It can be seen as intimidating, right? So you gotta be careful. Now, as far as fashion is concerned, it's seen as stylish, timeless. It doesn't go out of fashion, right? It's not like, oh, this year's color is burnt orange, and you're gonna wear it for 1 year, and then everybody's gonna laugh at you next year. Right now, no, black doesn't really go out of style, okay? And it makes you look thinner. So, you know, if you're like me and you had a few too many desserts over the break, you know, you might want to, you know, wear your black shirts for a little while. All right. Now, white is associated with innocence, peace, cleanliness, neutrality. Okay, it's considered a neutral, so it goes with pretty much anything. It also is used to show sterility. So you see the example here of the doctor, right? She's got the white coat on. Now let's think about it. If your doctor was not a clean person, it's going to be pretty obvious if they're wearing a white coat, because you're going to go in, they're going to have like dirt rings around the sleeves and mustard stains up on the shirt. Like, that, bless you. That's going to tell you right there that you probably want to watch really carefully and make sure they wash their hands before they go touching you, right? Now, as far as fashion is concerned, it is also considered stylish and neutral. It's light, it's cool. So in the summertime, it's recommended that you wear white because it reflects those wavelengths of light. Remember, we talked about that. Okay? The only problem is hard to keep it clean. All right? Red. All right. Anybody in here have red as like their favorite color?
I like red.
Yeah.
I like it. I
okay.
like red when it goes with white.
Right. So we've got the associations of love, passion. A higher heart rate actually occurs when you're exposed to red. Okay? A higher heart rate and a higher metabolism rate. okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, okay? It's also an attention getter. Now you'll see in my notes here, I wrote, for cars, police, and thieves, okay? Police tend to pull over red vehicles more often, and thieves tend to target red vehicles more often, all right? Because they get attention, okay? It's also considered an extreme color, so they actually don't recommend that you wear red if you're going into a negotiation, okay, or a confrontation, unless you want to make sure that that person sees you as like set in your ways, okay? If you're trying to make a deal or come to terms with somebody, don't wear red, all right? Now in fashion, it's gonna get attention, but it's also gonna make you look heavier. So I'll go back to my example over the break, okay? If you had a few too many desserts over the break and you're trying to look slim, avoid red for a minute, all right? They also recommend that if you want to use it in interior decorating, okay, so inside your house, you don't use it as like a main color, you use it as an accent, okay? So maybe a couple of pillows on the couch that are red instead of like a full-on red couch, okay? Because it's a little too much. Okay? Pink. Now remember, pink is a tint of red, okay? It's red with a little bit of white added in. Okay, the associations with this one: love, romance, tranquility, femininity, sensitivity, empathy, and weakness. Now here's the thing. They've done studies in prisons and in sports locker rooms where they've painted everything pink. And it actually has had a psychological impact on the people that are exposed to that color. Okay, in fact, there's still people complaining. There's a university, I believe it's University of Iowa, the visiting team's football locker room is painted Pepto-Bismol pink, okay? And they've actually done psychological studies where people lose strength and aggression when exposed to that much pink, okay? So, you know, a lot of this is theoretical, but that one actually has been studied out,
So that's
okay?
kind of cheap, right?
Well, yeah, and that's why people still complain about it, but hey, it is what it is, all right? And it's funny because, you know, in fashion, it's associated with femininity and women, but the fact is that pink used to kind of be like a manly color, like way back in the day, like men would wear like pink shirts and stuff. That fell out of favor, okay? But it used to be that way. Now we have blue, all right? Now blue is considered one of the most popular colors, all right? It has the impact psychologically of helping you to kind of chill out. It's peaceful, it's relaxing. Exposure to blue rooms actually creates calming chemicals, but it can also be seen as cold and sad and depressing, okay? Now, in terms of fashion, okay, oftentimes blue is used to symbolize loyalty. You may have heard the term true blue. Okay, that's kind of symbolized that you're a loyal person, right? So they actually recommend if you're going on a job interview, wear blue, okay? Because it sends this subtle psychological message to the person doing the interview, okay? It also gives you the look of being trustworthy, and blue rooms have been shown to create productivity, especially in creative people, and to enhance the strength of people lifting weights. Okay, so people in blue rooms were actually able to lift heavier weights than those in normal rooms. I'm looking at you, man, because I know you're into the whole weightlifting. All right. Green. All right. It's soothing, relaxing for the eyes and the mind. Okay. What's up? Yeah, this is like a really dark green. It doesn't come through very well on the projector. But you may have heard people talk about, like if you watch the late night shows, they'll talk about, oh, I was sitting back in the green room and watching the earlier guests on the show, okay? The green room is a place where, you know, they might have a lot of green decorating, they might have like a green couch and plants and things like that. And the reason they have a green room is so that the person that's about to go out on the TV show has a place to relax, okay, and soothe themselves and calm down their mind before they're out there in a very stressful situation. I think they actually have them at theaters too. I went backstage at the Old Globe Theater one time and they had one, all right? But dark green is actually considered a masculine, kind of conservative color, all right? It's also used in hospitals to help relax people. So you think about that hospital green. It's kind of like a soft tint of green. Okay, that's also supposed to relax patients. And it's also used to imply wealth. All right. So if you look at a lot of luxury car brands, oftentimes in their advertising, you'll see logos and color schemes that have a lot of dark green in them. I know Jaguar used to do it, Land Rover, okay, all those big companies that do the luxury vehicles. Yellow, I've got a cool little personal story about yellow, but this is considered an intense, attention-getting, overpowering color. All right. Now you may have seen like those yellow pads of paper, okay, legal pads. Those are actually yellow to help enhance the concentration of the people that use them, okay, because it's that bright attention-getting color. All right. It also has the effect of speeding up your metabolism. So we talked about red, okay. Yellow does the same thing. All right. Now, a mistake a lot of people make when they're going to have a baby and they don't know if it's going to be a boy or a girl, they say, oh, well, we'll just paint the room yellow. Anybody got a yellow room in the house? Nah.
I got a white room.
I grew up in a house that had a yellow kitchen, right? Guess where I got cussed out the most? The kitchen. Psychological studies have actually shown that people lose their temper more often in rooms that have a lot of yellow. And babies cry more in yellow rooms. So if you ever know anybody that doesn't want to find out if their baby's going to be a boy or a girl, tell them to avoid yellow. Say green. Green. It's nice. It's not a boy color or a girl color, right? And it's soothing. All right. Even though people see it as optimistic and cheerful, that temper thing, man, that ruins it. I had to throw Prince in here. All right. For purple. All right. Purple is associated with royalty, luxury, wealth, and sophistication. It's also seen as a very feminine color. Okay. Does anybody know why purple is associated with wealth?
That's my favorite color.
Royal purple? No, nah.
Well, royalty has something to do with it.
Purple's such a hard color to make.
Yes.
Oh, the kings used to wear
Yes, and that's why. Okay? So if you think about what he said, okay? Purple was a really hard color to make. To find something that you could use in nature to dye clothing purple, especially back in the day, it was extremely difficult. You had to send people out all over the place to find these raw materials. And because of that, what you said comes true is that it became a color associated with royalty because they were the only people that could afford to send people out all across the land to gather these materials to dye stuff purple. So when the king came out and everybody else was wearing their, potato sacks and their brown stuff, and then the king pops out with the purple robe and the big purple fur hat, all of a sudden, man, everybody's like, whoa. Okay, so you knew he had power, right? So that's how purple became associated with royalty and wealth. Right? Excellent, man. You guys got some background knowledge. All right, brown. Okay, now it's considered to be associated with things that are genuine, luxury, okay, wood, leather, okay, it amplifies sophistication, right? It's seen as a masculine color, but it can also be seen as sad and wistful. Now we get into the fun stuff. I love talking about food, if you couldn't tell. All right. Food. Now here's the cool thing. Blue, remember I told you blue is considered one of the most popular colors, okay? Even though it's popular, it's one of the least appetizing colors, okay? They've actually done experiments where they took perfectly good food and dyed it blue with food coloring, and people lost their appetites, okay? Same thing with purple and gray, but blue was the main one, okay? There's likely an evolutionary reason behind this. So let's think about it. Angels' ancestors, 3,000 years ago, they pop out of the cave and they're looking around for some food. They're gonna go on a hunt, right? And they go wandering across the savannah and they stumble across a dead animal, right? And they're like, hey, we can cut 3 days off of our hunting trip if we just drag this back to the cave, right? They look down at the dead animal and it's blue and purple and gray. Now, is it in their best interest to drag that back to the cave and feed their families with it? No. There is likely an evolutionary reason we avoid those colors in food. Okay? kind of important to our survival as a species. All right? Now this is gonna go and talk a little bit about what Sammy was saying earlier. Red is often used in restaurant decorating and logos because, remember, it speeds up your metabolism, which makes you feel hungry. It's an appetite stimulant. Yellow increases metabolism, also making you hungrier. Potent combination, right? Let's see if anybody has ever taken advantage of this to try and control us.
Well then.
In and out.
Wait, Outback. DQ.
I'm already starting to feel hungrier. Now, do you think this is a mistake? Do you think they did this on accident? They all just happened to come up with these colors? No, they have you like a little puppet, and they got the strings, and they're just pulling them day in and day out. Okay? They're making you hungry. They make you want to buy more and more and more and come back. And when you see the sign, and they combine it with the smell kind of floating out, man, you go driving past Carl's Jr. at the wrong time of day, and the burger smell is coming up out of their little smokestack. Anyway, that's that. Any questions, guys? You good?
Wait, does green was it forbid? Does green show like it's natural or something like that?
Green is often used to show health or natural.